Deputy Speaker, on 28th of March, I shared on social media the work I and colleagues across the two houses have been doing to urge the government of Pakistan to build an international airport at Mirpur. This is an important issue for over 1 million British Kashmiris who overwhelmingly come from there and face delay and danger whilst travelling from Islamabad to Mirpur. The reactions to that post, including from some members of the House, have resulted in us being subject to Islamophobic, racist attacks and harassment. The members of Great Yarmouth, Harborough, Oadby and Wigston, the member for Uffrington, the member for Boston and Skegness, all of whom have been...
The honourable member should not be criticising other members for their social media posts in that.
The situation that unfolded in the UK Parliament when Labour MP Keir Ali was silenced by the Speaker marks a significant moment in the ongoing debate about freedom of speech, parliamentary conduct, and the limits of political criticism. On March 28th, Ali, a passionate advocate for his constituents, shared a social media post highlighting his efforts and those of his colleagues to push for the construction of an international airport in Mirpur, Pakistan. The airport project was not just an infrastructure issue. It was a cause close to the hearts of over 1 million British Kashmiris, who, Ali argued, face delays and safety risks while travelling to and from their homeland via Islamabad. This initiative aimed to address these concerns and offer a safer, more efficient route for the community. In his post, Ali also mentioned the support of MPs across the Houses of Parliament for this initiative. However, the seemingly straightforward call for infrastructure improvement took a sharp turn when it triggered a wave of criticism from several fellow parliamentarians. What followed was a series of reactions that not only undermined the importance of the project, but also led to a deeply concerning incident in which Ali was silenced during a parliamentary session. The reactions to Ali's social media post, particularly from MPs representing Great Yarmouth, Wigston, Uppingham and Boston and Skegness, were harsh and included personal attacks. According to Ali, these reactions soon escalated into Islamophobic and racist harassment, which he highlighted in his speech. He claimed that the criticisms were not just about his initiative, but were laced with personal hostility, reflecting a broader issue of prejudice and intolerance. The backlash led to a tense exchange in the House of Commons, where in a move that shocked many, the Deputy Speaker intervened. He warned Ali that he should not be criticising other members for their social media posts, effectively silencing him and preventing him from defending his stance. This intervention, while adhering to parliamentary rules, raised serious questions about the boundaries of acceptable political discourse, and whether MPs should be discouraged from speaking out against their colleagues, especially when it concerns the broader issues of race and representation. Ali's attempt to advocate for his constituents was reduced to a mere clash over parliamentary etiquette, overshadowing the more profound issues of equality, political freedom, and the treatment of minority voices in UK politics. The incident, both in terms of its immediate consequences and the long-term implications, serves as a poignant reminder of the challenges that MPs, particularly those from marginalised communities, face when trying to make their voices heard in spaces that often resist change. The reactions to Labour MP Keir Ali's call for an international airport in Mirpur have sparked a much-needed conversation about the limits of political criticism and the role of social media in modern parliamentary discourse. When Ali shared a post outlining the collective efforts of himself and his colleagues to support the project, he did not anticipate the backlash that would follow. The airport proposal was a crucial matter for the British Kashmiri community, which had long been advocating for better connectivity to their homeland. Ali's goal was simple: to address the logistical and safety challenges that over 1 million British Kashmiris face while travelling to and from Islamabad. However, his call for an infrastructure project was met with personal attacks from several MPs, including those representing Great Yarmouth, Wigston, Uppingham, and Boston and Skegness. These criticisms were not limited to policy disagreements, but quickly escalated into Islamophobic and racist harassment. According to Ali, the level of animosity he encountered was not only deeply unsettling, but also reflected a disturbing trend in UK politics. What began as a debate about a necessary infrastructure project soon turned into a hostile attack on Ali's identity and his intentions. As he made this point in the House of Commons, it became evident that his attempts to advocate for his community were being overshadowed by political and racial prejudice. In the heated exchange, Ali found himself not only battling the substance of the critique but also the underlying xenophobia that was fueling it. The situation intensified when the deputy speaker intervened during Ali's speech, silencing him and preventing him from responding to the accusations. The speaker's decision was grounded in parliamentary rules that discourage direct criticism of fellow members, but it also highlighted an uncomfortable reality. Political speech was being stifled at a critical moment, when Ali was trying to defend his community's right to have their voices heard. By silencing Ali, the speaker inadvertently reinforced the perception that MPs who challenge the status quo or push for minority rights are being silenced, both politically and socially. This action prompted a larger debate about the boundaries of political discourse in the UK, and whether parliamentarians should be restricted in their ability to express dissent, especially when it concerns marginalized communities. As the incident reverberated through the media, it raised fundamental questions about the role of MPs in representing the interests of their constituents, and how the political establishment reacts when those voices challenge the dominant narrative. The incident involving Labour MP Tahir Ali in the House of Commons raises significant concerns about the state of political discourse and how certain voices are treated within the British political system. Ali's initial proposal to build an international airport in Mirpur, Pakistan, was not only an attempt to address the practical needs of the British Kashmiri community, but also a call for long overdue recognition and action on behalf of marginalized groups. However, the backlash he received from his fellow MPs, which quickly turned personal and racially charged, reveals a darker side to the political process. In a time when social media has become a powerful tool for public engagement and the dissemination of political ideas, the fact that Ali's efforts to raise an important issue were met with Islamophobic and racist responses points to a worrying trend. It speaks to the tendency to undermine the legitimacy of marginalized voices, rather than engage with their arguments on the merits. The situation was exacerbated by the fact that the debate surrounding the airport was not about policy or even practical concerns, but about attacking Ali's character, identity, and intentions. This shift in focus from a vital infrastructure issue to personal attacks against Ali raises questions about the nature of political opposition in the UK and whether certain narratives are being deliberately silenced to maintain the status quo. When Ali took to social media to outline the work he and his colleagues were doing to push for the airport, it was clear that he was advocating for a solution to a long-standing problem faced by his community. Yet, instead of engaging with the merits of the project, the political response turned hostile and deeply personal. The criticism Ali received, which included racist remarks and Islamophobic attacks, was not just an isolated incident. It reflected a broader climate in which political dissent, especially from minority groups, is frequently met with intimidation and exclusion rather than constructive dialogue. This type of hostile environment can only deter people from speaking out and challenging the system, thereby perpetuating a cycle of exclusion that harms not just individuals but society as a whole. The intervention of the deputy speaker, who silenced Ali in Parliament, further compounded this issue. While parliamentary rules may prohibit direct criticism of fellow members, the silencing of a representative who was simply standing up for his community's interests only reinforced the perception that certain voices are not welcome in the political discourse. The decision to quiet Ali, especially when he was defending a legitimate cause, underscores the power dynamics at play within political institutions and raises alarms about the broader implications for freedom of speech and representation. In this moment, the treatment of Ali highlights a crucial question: who gets to speak, and whose voices are marginalized or silenced in the process? The silencing of Labour MP Tahir Ali in Parliament serves as a stark reminder of the ongoing challenges faced by minority groups when attempting to challenge the political establishment. His call for an international airport in Mirpur, Pakistan, was not just a political issue. It was a voice for the over 1 million British Kashmiris who have been historically marginalized and whose concerns often go unheard in mainstream British politics. The incident brought into sharp focus how the political system, while claiming to be a champion of free speech and representation, can in reality silence voices that challenge the status quo. The attacks that Ali received following his public push for the airport were not based on the merits of his proposal, but were instead rooted in racial and Islamophobic sentiments. These types of personal attacks are increasingly common when politicians, especially from minority backgrounds, speak out. The fact that these attacks were allowed to go unchecked, while Ali's proposal was sidelined and distorted, reveals the underlying biases that still permeate the political establishment. What made this situation even more troubling was the intervention of the deputy speaker, who shut down Ali's comments in Parliament. While parliamentary decorum requires MPs to avoid personal attacks, Ali's remarks were not attacks, but simply a response to the unjust criticisms and harassment he had received. His speech, calling out the discriminatory behavior directed towards him, was an attempt to hold fellow MPs accountable for their actions. By silencing him, the speaker not only failed to address the real issue at hand, the racism and Islamophobia that Ali was facing, but also sent a dangerous message about who gets to have their voice heard in the political arena. The incident exposed the fragile nature of political discourse in the UK, where legitimate concerns can be quickly overshadowed by personal attacks, and where MPs from minority backgrounds are often expected to conform to an established narrative or face marginalization. This is not an isolated case, but part of a wider trend where challenging the dominant political discourse can result in hostility and personal vilification. Ali's case demonstrates the importance of creating a more inclusive political space, where politicians are free to represent the interests of their communities without fear of discrimination or silencing. It also raises the question of whether the current political system truly allows for the diverse voices of all citizens to be represented fairly, or whether it continues to favor those in power who are willing to maintain the status quo. The events surrounding Ali's speech are emblematic of the broader struggles faced by marginalized groups in the UK, highlighting the urgent need for a more equitable and inclusive political environment. The growing tension surrounding Labour MP Tahir Ali's treatment in Parliament underscores the broader struggles faced by minority communities, particularly in the political sphere. Ali's call for an international airport in Mirpur, Pakistan, was not simply about infrastructure or logistics. It was about addressing a long-standing issue that directly impacts over 1 million British Kashmiris. His advocacy for the airport was rooted in the real concerns of his constituents, who endure delays and risks while travelling between Pakistan and the UK. For many British Kashmiris, this was a matter of accessibility and safety. Yet instead of the discussion focusing on the importance of the proposal, Ali was instead met with harsh criticism and personal attacks, which highlighted the deep-rooted biases that still plague British politics. The backlash Ali received was swift and disproportionate, and it was not limited to political disagreement. The criticisms quickly escalated into Islamophobic and racist remarks, which is a deeply troubling reflection of how the voices of minority MPs are often treated in the British political landscape. Ali's experience is emblematic of the challenges faced by politicians from marginalized communities, who must constantly contend with discrimination when they speak out against systemic issues. What was most concerning, however, was the intervention by the Deputy Speaker, who silenced Ali in Parliament. The Deputy Speaker's decision to stop Ali from addressing the criticisms leveled against him seemed to align more with suppressing uncomfortable truths than with upholding parliamentary order. Ali was not engaging in a personal attack, but was instead defending himself and his community against unwarranted racism and Islamophobia. His words were an effort to hold those responsible for the attacks accountable, and to give a voice to the millions of British Kashmiris who had been ignored for too long. By silencing Ali, the Deputy Speaker inadvertently reinforced the message that marginalized groups should be quiet when faced with systemic discrimination. This incident shines a light on the troubling power dynamics in British politics, where those who challenge the status quo or speak up for their communities often face suppression. It also raises questions about the broader implications for free speech in Parliament. If MPs are not allowed to speak out against racism and defend their communities in such a high-profile forum, how can we expect to see true representation of minority groups in government? Ali's case demonstrates the urgent need for reform and accountability within the UK's political system to ensure that all MPs, regardless of their background, are given the platform to represent their constituents without fear of discrimination or retribution. The episode involving Labour MP Tahir Ali in Parliament has raised serious questions about the state of free speech and the treatment of minority voices within the UK political system. Ali's attempt to bring attention to the need for an international airport in Mirpur, Pakistan, was met not with a substantive debate on the issue, but with racially charged criticisms that quickly escalated into personal attacks. Ali's advocacy was a direct response to the hardships faced by over 1 million British Kashmiris, who struggle with delays and risks when travelling from Islamabad to Mirpur. His call for a solution to this problem was a sincere attempt to improve the lives of his constituents, yet it was overshadowed by an uncomfortable wave of hostility from certain fellow MPs. What was even more distressing was the way the debate took a personal and derogatory turn, as some members resorted to Islamophobic remarks and unfounded accusations. This was not just a matter of political disagreement, but rather an example of how racial and religious prejudices continue to infiltrate public discourse, even in the highest chambers of government. When Ali attempted to respond to these attacks in Parliament, he was silenced by the Deputy Speaker. This moment of silencing revealed a larger issue: the marginalization of minority voices within British politics. Instead of defending Ali's right to respond to the hostile environment and protect his integrity, the Deputy Speaker's intervention suggested that the real concern was not the discriminatory behavior, but the discomfort caused by Ali's word. By preventing Ali from addressing the racist attacks against him, Parliament inadvertently reinforced the message that such attacks could go unchecked. This is particularly troubling in a political system that prides itself on its commitment to democracy and free speech. If MPs from marginalized backgrounds are silenced when they speak out against discrimination, then the fundamental democratic principle of fair and equal representation is called into question. Ali's case has sparked wider conversations about the treatment of minority MPs, the need for more inclusive dialogue in Parliament, and the importance of protecting free speech within the political sphere. The fact that Ali was prevented from defending himself highlights a broader issue that threatens the integrity of the political system: the silencing of minority voices and the failure to address systemic racism. In the long term, this moment could have lasting implications for how MPs from underrepresented communities are treated and whether they are truly allowed to represent their constituents. The challenge now lies in ensuring that such incidents do not become normalized, and that every MP, regardless of background, is afforded the same platform to speak, represent, and stand against injustice. See you later.